girls. I'm not quite sure why that is. May have something to do with the lack of confidence. I don't really know why it is. A lot of times kids will kind of want to camp out on that 4th grade level. They want a workbook, you know. They want to have something that's very well defined, very concrete, very simple. They want to look at the information, spit the answer back out, and that be it. That's fairly common. And again, you may have a kid who has that attitude in one subject but not in another. You may have a kid who is making this very natural, curious, inquisitive transition in a math or science area and is really wants just the facts, ma'am, when they're, you know, doing their literature. They don't want to ask questions about it. They just want to do it and get it done. And your job as a parent is to gently pull them along into that logic stage. But it's very common. It's very common for them to need a little bit of pulling, a little bit of modeling, a little bit of help. Listen, it's a difficult transition. In many ways, it's easier just to stay on that grammar level. It's easier just to spit the answers back out. Human nature being what it is, everybody wants to take the easier path, you know. If it were a totally natural and easy transition, we wouldn't see high school students coming out of high school as unable to think as they are. They would naturally make the transition without any help, and they're not getting any help. So they don't make it often. So, I mean, that should encourage you if you're having a child who is sort of, you know, camping out in 4th grade and saying, no, give me my workbook, give me my fill in the blank, that's so much easier. It's normal, and it's difficult to pull them all along into the logic stage, and you get a little bit of resistance, and, you know, you got to pull them and then back off and pull them and then back off, but it's worth making the effort. And because a child resists you doesn't necessarily mean they're not ready to go into the logic stage. It just means, you know, they need a little encouragement. They need to be pushed across the bridge towards maturity a little bit more.
Thank you, Susan. We have time for another question.
Hello?
Yes. Hello, we can hear you.
Hi, wonderful. I have a question.
Yes.
I have a 9-year-old girl, who, of course, I think is phenomenal. I've been extremely blessed. And she is excelling in every single area except writing.
Ah.
Yeah, she just, the actual act of forming letters is very hard for her, and I'm thinking about teaching her to type.
Yeah,
so that hopefully she can get those thoughts on paper. Wonderful orator. She can narrate as the day goes on.
Yeah, so listen, if the mechanical writing is the difficulty, get a typing program. Do not let that stand in her way. I think your instinct there is absolutely correct. I would say I would keep on with her doing a handwriting program, you know, because those muscles, listen, kids find motor coordination and what they can do in their minds. It's normal for those two things to be developmentally years apart. And it's so important not to frustrate their mental development because their hand hurts, you know. So absolutely, teach her how to type, but get a handwriting program. Make sure she does, 10 minutes of handwriting every day. And I think I would have her do an occasional handwritten exercise as well. A kid who writes 2 or 3 sentences by hand every day, that kid is developing handwriting muscles, and eventually it will get easier. A kid who is having to write a page every day is not developing handwriting materials. They're just getting progressively more frustrated. So think of it as you would, jogging or swimming or something, and work gradually on those hand muscles. And in the meantime, absolutely, teach her how to type so she can get her thoughts out.
Thank you. I open the call back up again.
I have a question about foreign language. When should we teach Spanish and Latin, and could they be taught together?
When should you teach Spanish and Latin, and could they be taught together? Okay, here's my
Susan?
Yes?
Susan, let me repeat that again.
Sure.
Her question was, what about foreign languages? Can you teach Spanish and Latin together?
Yes. The human brain has a tremendous ability to hold languages apart. It's very, very rare, actually, that a kid will mix up languages. I don't think that's something that you need to worry about. Here's my 10-second speech on foreign languages. It is, in my opinion, always better to teach the spoken language first, because the younger a kid is when, he or she learns to speak a foreign language, the more likely that child is to be fluent. The reason why we don't necessarily recommend that in the well-trained mind is because it doesn't matter what program you use. You can use Rosetta Stone, you can use the Learnables, you can use Power Glide. It doesn't matter. Unless someone comes and speaks to you 2 or 3 times a week in that language, you're not going to develop conversational fluency. And there's going to be a certain amount of frustration. If you have someone who can come and speak to you 2 or 3 times a week, then I think you should do the spoken language, do it for a year, and then introduce Latin the year after that. If you don't have someone who can come and do that, I would be inclined to go ahead and do the Latin first, because they're still getting the advantage of learning the different forms, the different shape of a foreign language while they're young. And then I would try as best I could to get them eventually into a situation where they're able to practice that conversational speech as well.
Well, Susan, this has all been excellent information. Could you please give us all of your contact information one more time for people who came in late on the call?
Sure. Our website is welltrainedmind.com. Welltrainedmind.com, no punctuation.
And what do you have on the website?
We have essays about classical education, an introduction, sort of what is classical education. We have book lists. We have this great section of the website, I like it, called A Day in the Life, where people record how an actual day went, each subject, each kid. We have message boards, just support for people who are interested in finding out more about this.
And what is the name of the books that you have written?
The Well-Trained Mind, A Guide to Classical Education at Home, and it's published by Norton, and it's available pretty much at any bookstore.
And?
Oh, and the Well-Educated Mind, A Guide to the Classical Education You Never Had, which is the book for grown-ups who want to re-educate themselves in the classical tradition.
And, of course, one of our listeners mentioned the Story of the World series.
Yes, and the Story of the World series is a world history for children, and it's a 4-volume world history series, and you can find more about that either from welltrainedmind.com or by going to our business website, which is peacehillpress.net, peace like war and peace, peacehillpress.net.
Do you have a newsletter that people can subscribe to?
We have an online newsletter. They can enter their email addresses, and they'll be notified when new material is put online, and that is a private mailing list. We would never give your email address to anybody.
Excellent. That's terrific information. Thank you again, Susan. Sure appreciate your time.